They wanted a monster, then let them face what they've created. When people dismissed you, when they mocked your pain, when they pushed you past the breaking point, they thought you would crumble. But instead, you rose, and in your silence, in your scars, in your unshakable will, you became something they can't control, can't predict, and can't destroy. This isn't about revenge. This is about power. The kind of power that comes from emotional intelligence, from psychological boundaries, from unshakable self-worth. They wanted a beast they could fear. But what terrifies them most is that you're no longer chained to their approval. You've become untouchable. So today, we're going to uncover why embracing the monster they tried to build is the most stoic thing you can do, and how that transformation gives you inner peace, discipline, and a high-performance mindset that no betrayal can ever take away. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand the greatest danger isn't in becoming what they feared, it's in realizing you no longer need to prove anything at all. Picture yourself at the bottom of a mountain, not a gentle hill, not a smooth climb, but a jagged wall of stone, sharp enough to cut your hands, steep enough to break your will. That's where life threw you. And you didn't walk up with comfort. No, you crawled, on your hands and knees, bleeding, exhausted, and doubted by everyone who said you'd never make it past the first step. Every scar on your body, every wound in your soul was carved by betrayal, disrespect, rejection, and disappointment. People you trusted spat on your efforts. They laughed at your dreams. They called you too weak, too small, too insignificant to matter. And maybe for a moment you believed them. That's the cruelty of life. It doesn't just hit you with hardship. It tries to convince you that hardship is all you'll ever be. But here's the truth. The Stoics knew well. Pain is not the end. Pain is the beginning. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And that's what the mountain of suffering is: a test, a forge. Every step you crawled was a declaration: I refuse to stay broken. The world wanted you crushed, but crawling, bleeding, you discovered something far more powerful: resilience. You stopped begging for rescue. You stopped expecting fairness. You learned the first rule of emotional intelligence, that pain is data, not destiny. Pain showed you who was real, who was fake, and most importantly, who you truly are when everything else is stripped away. That climb taught you the essence of psychological boundaries. No one was going to carry you up the mountain. No one was going to protect your spirit but you. So you drew a line: enough. Enough of letting people dictate your worth. Enough of letting betrayal define your identity. Enough of bleeding for those who would never lift a finger for you. It's in those lonely, brutal climbs that self-worth is born. You see, worth is not given. It is claimed. And sometimes it takes crawling through fire, dragging your broken body up a mountain, to realize I was valuable even when no one saw me. And here's where your transformation began. While others wasted their energy on blaming the world, you conserved yours. You built inner peace. Not because life suddenly became gentle, but because you decided chaos would no longer own you. The silence of the mountain became your ally. No distractions, no noisy, just the raw battle between you and your limits. This is the paradox. The Stoics understood solitude is not weakness. Solitude is training. Every moment you pushed forward alone, every night you collapsed under the stars. Every sunrise where you forced yourself to rise again, that was discipline shaping you into steel. You weren't climbing for applause. You weren't climbing for revenge. You were climbing because standing still meant death. And here's the lesson: the world never stops being cruel. It doesn't hand out medals for effort. It doesn't cry when you bleed. But it does respect power. And power is not in shouting, not in begging, not in proving. Power is in surviving the climb that should have killed you. Power is in the high-performance mindset that says, I will not stop, no matter how much it hurts, no matter how steep it gets, no matter who doubts me. That's why this mountain matters. It's not about reaching the top. It's about what the climb carves out of you. The mountain strips away illusions. It tears off the mask of I'm fine. It burns away the softness you clung to. And what's left is raw, untouchable strength. They wanted to break you. Instead, they built you. They forced you into the fire. And you came out something else, not the fragile version of yourself they once mocked, but something they can no longer recognize, something they can no longer control. This is the beginning. The mountain of suffering wasn't punishment. It was initiation. And now, standing bloodied but unbroken, you understand the truth. You are not weak, not broken, not small. You are the storm they never saw coming. At some point in your climb, something snapped. Not your body, your mindset. You realized the most dangerous prison was never the betrayal, the disrespect, or the cruelty of others. It was the belief that you were only a victim, and that belief was killing you more than their actions ever could. See, victims wait. They wait for apologies. They wait for recognition. They wait for the world to suddenly become fair. But fairness never comes. And waiting is just another way of giving your enemies power. That's the harsh lesson, life carved into your soul. You don't get stronger by begging for mercy. You get stronger by deciding you'll never need it again. When the Stoics spoke of self-mastery, this was what they meant. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the turning point. You stopped obsessing over what they did and started focusing on how you would respond. You stepped out of the role of the powerless and into the role of the untouchable. Think about it. Every insult they threw at you, every door they slammed, every time they left you bleeding on the floor, you turned that into data. Into fuel. That's emotional intelligence at its highest level, the ability to turn pain into power instead of poison. Instead of replaying the wounds 1,000 times, you asked, how do I make sure this never happens again? And the answer was clear: boundaries, psychological boundaries so sharp they could cut steel. You stopped explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped lowering yourself just to make others feel taller. You stopped tolerating disrespect disguised as love, manipulation disguised as concern, and control disguised as care. That shift scared people, because the old you, the victim, was predictable. They knew how to push your buttons, how to make you doubt yourself, how to keep you begging for their crumbs of approval. But the new you, the one who doesn't explain, doesn't justify, doesn't react, that's dangerous. Because nothing terrifies manipulators more than losing access to your emotions. And here's the paradox: the more you pulled back, the louder they screamed. The more silent you became, the more chaotic they grew, because your silence was proof of something they couldn't handle, that their power over you was gone. This is where self-worth is reborn, not in the applause of others, not in the shallow validation of temporary relationships, but in the quiet certainty of your own value. You started walking differently, talking differently. Not because you were trying to prove anything, but because you no longer had to. The need for validation died. And with it, the chains that once bound you. But this transformation isn't just about rejecting weakness. It's about choosing strength with clarity. Some people mistake becoming a monster with becoming reckless, destructive, or cruel. But true power, the kind forged by suffering, is focused, it's disciplined, it's stoic. The victim reacts. The dangerous one responds with precision. The victim seeks revenge. The dangerous one knows the greatest revenge is indifference, success, and inner peace. The victim wastes energy, proving themselves. The dangerous one conserves energy, using it only for battles that matter. And here's where your high-performance mindset locked in. You realized energy is currency. Attention is power. And every time you wasted it on those who disrespected you, you were bankrupting yourself. So you withdrew your investment. You stopped funding the chaos. You started funding your growth. Let's be clear, you didn't become dangerous because you sought to harm anyone. You became dangerous because you mastered yourself, because you reached a level of calm that cannot be bought, a level of clarity that cannot be shaken, and a level of self-respect that cannot be negotiated. That's why your presence alone unsettles people now. They can't read you. They can't provoke you. They can't control you. You're not playing their game anymore, and that makes you untouchable. Every enemy you've ever had left you with something: an insult, a betrayal, a scar. Most people see those as wounds. You learned to see them as weapons, because the truth is, they handed you the very tools you needed to rise above them. Think about it. They gave you their lies, their doubt, their rejection. Each one was supposed to bury you. Instead, you forged them into armor. That's emotional intelligence at its most ruthless, not avoiding pain, but using it, shaping it, making it serve you. The Stoics taught that what harms you can also instruct you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That's not just philosophy, it's strategy. Every obstacle is raw material. Every slight is a blade. Every failure is fuel. They said you weren't good enough. Fine. You sharpened that into drive. They mocked your scars. Fine. You turned those scars into proof. You can survive fire. They abandoned you. Fine. You learned self-reliance so strong that now abandonment doesn't scare you. It liberates you. This is what it means to turn pain into power. You no longer see hurt as something to avoid. You see it as training. Like a blacksmith, you hammer their cruelty against the anvil of your soul until it becomes unbreakable steel. Here's the paradox. Most people never understand the more hate someone throws at you, the more resources they give you, the more they doubt you, the more clarity you gain, the more they try to crush you, the more resilient you become. Because every attack adds weight to your resistance training, and resistance builds strength. That's why your enemies fear you now. Not because you fought back with fists or words, but because you did something far more terrifying. You grew stronger with every blow. They can't comprehend it. Most people break under pressure. You became pressure. Let's get practical. Every insult. It trained you to stop relying on external validation. That's self-worth. Every betrayal. It taught you to set psychological boundaries so firm that no one crosses them without consequence. every loss, it forced you to build inner peace that doesn't shake when the world does. And here's the beauty of it. Once you realize that their weapons are secretly your training tools, you stop fearing them. Their opinion, just more fuel. Their doubt, just another set of weights on the bar. Their cruelty, just more data for your growth. They can't hurt you anymore because you've mastered the art of alchemy, turning poison into power. But let's be clear, this isn't about pretending pain doesn't exist. It's about mastering it, about looking it straight in the eye and saying, "I'll use you. You don't use me." That's high-performance mindset in its purest form. No excuses, no victimhood, just relentless transformation. Think of it this way. They handed you stones to weigh you down. Instead, you built a fortress. They handed you chains to trap you. Instead, you melted them into swords. They tried to silence you. Instead, your silence became the loudest roar. Now you stand in a place few ever reach, untouchable. Not because life stopped hitting you, but because you learned how to hit back without even swinging, by existing, by thriving, by radiating strength they can't break. You've already won. That's why you're dangerous now, because you didn't just survive what they did to you, you weaponized it. Silence is the most underestimated weapon in human history. People think it's weakness. They think if you don't respond, you've lost. But the truth, silence is strategy. Silence is power. Silence is the storm that crushes everything without raising its voice. When someone disrespects you, they expect a reaction. They want you shouting, proving, bleeding energy just to convince them of your worth. That's their battlefield. Chaos, drama, noise. The moment you step into it, you've already lost, because you're playing their game. But what happens when you don't respond? When you let their words hang in the air unanswered? When you refuse to waste even a single heartbeat explaining yourself? That's when silence becomes louder than any scream. That's when you shift the battlefield in your favor. Think about lions. Do lions argue with barking dogs? No, they walk on, unbothered, knowing their presence alone is enough. That's what your silence does. It announces your strength without you having to speak. It tells the world, I don't need to explain. I don't need to convince. I know my worth. Here's where emotional intelligence comes in. Reactivity is slavery. When you explode, every time someone presses a button, you're proving they own you. But silence is mastery. It's proof you've taken back control of your inner world. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Silence is that realization in action. It's choosing not to let their chaos penetrate your peace. It's setting psychological boundaries so solid that no insult can shake your foundation. Of course, silence is not about running away. It's about standing so still, so calm, so untouchable that they suffocate in the emptiness of your response. People feed on attention. They thrive on the energy you give them. Even if it's anger, when you cut that supply, they wither. They choke on their own emptiness. Your silence unsettles them. Why? Because it reflects their powerlessness. They expect you to dance when they pull the strings, but when you don't move, they realize they never had control. That's the roar hidden inside silence. It forces them to confront their own weakness. And the irony, silence is not passive. It's active domination. It's a psychological strategy sharper than any weapon. You're not ignoring them. You're crushing them by refusing to participate in their illusion of power. That's why silence is the ultimate